Shabbat Shalom, Moses Montu for your friends. Today we're going to learn about Parshat Mishpatim, just one little phrase in Parshat Mishpatim, which comes after the Jews received the Aseret Dibrot, the 10 utterances of God at Mount Sinai. They have this wonderful experience, and it says, Ve'ela Mishpatim, here are the laws, and it lists many of them. And among them is one general law that sounds so logical that could be very complex. And it says, Acharei Rabim Lahatot. We follow the majority. It has to do with a court. If 23 judges on a court, 12 say this, 11 say this, go for it. Maybe you should be a little suspicious. It was so close. But at the end of the day, we follow the majority. And there are different ways that we follow the majority and different little knetches, the little differences in what we do. But we follow the majority. Rov, Rabim, we follow that majority. And here's a little story. I've heard this story in so many different ways about so many different people. I'm just going to tell you a version that I heard today that I think is a wonderful story and something to think about. Before I tell you that story, just to mention that when I was a kid, I used to watch a show called Superman. And Superman, according to the opening of that show, was very involved in truth, justice, and the American way. And I remember asking a question to my parents, and I don't think they had a great answer. What does that mean, truth, justice, and the American way? In the American way, truth and justice? What is different about truth and justice and the American way? And maybe this week we've seen some of where truth can be bent. And and the truth that I'm just thinking about Hamas and what they've done this week and some of the things that they did in their publicity about some of the hostages and so the bodies of the hostages, and I'm not going to go into the details, but are they really showing the truth? But let's get to the story. The story is that there's a young boy, he's 7 years old, and there is a prince who has a castle, and he says, I've heard this boy is very interesting and very bright, and I'm going to bring him to my castle. And he decides to play a little trick on him, because the boy walks up to the castle, and the door creaks open, and there's no one around, and there's no staff at all to show him where anybody is, and the prince is waiting in a room with the door closed. Now this kid, he's 7 years old. Imagine how scary this is, how intimidating this is. But this boy had some gusto and some grit, and he walked around and he finds his own way. There's no sign on the door. There's nothing indicating which door is which. He opens up the right door. He knocks a little bit and he said, hears a voice say, come on in. And he goes in and there's the prince sitting there and he says, hi. Yeah, the boy says, hi. He says, I invited you. He said, yes, but there was no one to tell me where to go. And he said, so what was your plan? When you walked in and you saw there was no one around, what was your plan? He said, well, my first plan was, I know according to Judaism that we follow the majority. I was going to ask whatever servants, whatever staff was in the building, where do I go? And hopefully the majority of them would point me in the right direction. Even if a few of them didn't know where to go, I'll follow the majority, because that's what our Judaism tells us. And he says, so there was no one to tell you to go. What'd you do? And he said, well, the doors have little windows on them, and only one door had a curtain on it that was closed. So I figured that's where you were hiding from me, that you were playing some sort of game, and that was the room because the curtain was closed. So I'm here. So the prince says, that's amazing. He said, let me ask you a question. You Jews believe, and this is a 7-year-old boy, he says to him, you Jews believe that the majority wins. And he goes, yeah, that's what it says in the Torah. So he said, okay, so aren't my people the majority and you Jews are the minority? Shouldn't we win? Acharei Rabim Lahatot. Your Torah says you should follow the majority. We're the majority. Why are you still acting like you're a Jew? And he said, and this is the key answer. He said, the reason that I follow what we do is because following the majority is only when we don't know. That's what we said before. If there's a safek, if I'm not sure. If somebody comes to you and they know exactly what to do, there's no reason to follow the majority. The majority is just wrong. And we have laws that apply to that, where we know the truth and the majority doesn't apply. So he said, here you go. I know from my parents and my grandparents, and I know looking around the world that there's only one true God and only one true way to believe. So I don't care what the majority say, because that's our law. So the truth, justice, and the American way, I wonder, do we look around the world and can we tell where just because the majority of the people are saying something or the majority wants something, what if the majority said, we want everybody else's money, come give it to us? Do we have to give it to them because they're the majority? Or do we know, well, this is our money, we earned it? If the majority come and tell us that everybody in the world are green people, do we say, oh, well, I'm going to believe that majority? No, we know some things to be true. So maybe even the people from Superman knew there's the American way, and sometimes the American way is not truth. And Superman said, it's not just the American way, it's also the truth. We see so much out there these days, especially, I repeat, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Everything they say to me is not true. And you watch people who believed in them, who followed them, who led rallies for them, and you watch the things that they do. And I'm just going to say the one little thing, that the caskets that they let go on Thursday, just yesterday, said in these poor mother and children that they were arrested on October 7th. They were arrested on October 7th. We know the truth. We don't have to listen to the voices that say false. Shabbat Shalom.